Howdy and welcome back to Reading Held Hostage. My name's Blue and I love to read. You just say your name now.
Hi, I'm Faith.
We didn't give you a thing to say.
No.
She does also like to read.
I do like to read too.
Yeah, you were on for the Ender's Game episode.
Yeah, I did the Ender's Game episode. Me and Maria did.
You look very uncomfortable. It's just a recording. It's okay. We just talk. We pretend we're not. We're just gonna do our favorite book because Gatsby's. We're doing The Great Gatsby by allegedly F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Partially.
Maybe.
Maybe some of it.
When I went back through my read, I read it through that lens again, that it could have been done by Zelda, and I was like, Nick is not giving prominent man. Because Tom is, and Tom's...
Tom is something else. Nick is... He's got a lot of interesting perspectives that I don't think just a regular, straight...
White...
regular
rich man...
Yeah, especially with a lot of the beliefs that F. Scott Fitzgerald held in his life.
Yeah. At least he didn't call his cat the N-word like one of the other prominent authors of the time did. I can't remember who it was.
His cat?
His cat was just, named the N-word, hard ER and everything.
Oh.
Who was it? It was somebody really famous. I can't remember who it was. It was, Hemingway or something like that. But Future Blue popping in to say that it was actually H.P. Lovecraft.
I know F. Scott is known for anti-Semitism.
I could tell.
I could tell. Really? Okay, maybe
Upon my second
any.
read with that perspective, I felt it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, there's a lot of no's.
He loves him. There's a lot
Loves a good nose.
We're going straight into it.
Yeah. Well, what we'll do first is, we can talk about this, but we're going to do, the general overview and then, talk more in depth. But we read this book, at least once a year, you and I each.
For context, we're sisters.
Yes.
I don't know if they knew
We are sisters.
Whenever we used to go on, family vacation, we would just, have The Great Gatsby and,
always
pass it back and forth.
Mm-hmm. So, it's a quick read, relatively, depending on your reading level and how fast you are. We both read pretty quick.
Yeah, and once you've read it once, then you can just go right through.
And both of our books, my book has been annotated to hell and back.
Yeah, mine's a bit ran through.
I think I wrote, when I first annotated this book was back in 2016. Which is super embarrassing, might I just, some of these annotations, I'm you.
See, I never do, noted annotations. Mine are all, I think I have, 3 different color highlights in here. 2 pens, and, But yeah, I never write anything because I get nervous.
No, the first time I read this, 2016, I was in AP Lit. Oh. So I had to read this for literature. I'm sure I'd read it before then, because I remember I wrote a paper on how the 3, main women in this book are, the 3 different types of women that were at the time.
Are there 3 Myrtle.
Yeah, Jordan, Daisy, who's the...
I was does this book pass the Bechdel test?
Well...
I don't think it does.
I don't think it does either. Mm-mm.
I'm sure Jordan and Daisy at some point say something not about a man. They probably say something about, the wind, the heat. Oh, it's hot.
Yeah, well, when they first introduced Daisy's
tired.
I'm so seepy, and it's okay.
That passes the Bechdel test then.
Yeah. Feminist literature right here.
Count it right here.
But, so we read this book a lot, so we have a lot of opinions on it. And I also like the 2013 movie a lot.
Yeah.
I remember when it came out, people were like, fuck that movie, and I was like...
That's a really good adaptation.
I actually really like it.
Actually, I have a funny story about the movie. So I'd already read the book because you'd brought it on vacation a few times. So I'd probably read it, 2 or 3 times, and... I had seen the movie by the time I got to the English class, in which we would be reading it together.
We had the same teacher for that class, too.
Yeah.
Our neighbors.
No, so, we read the book, and then we're all oh, it's really good. I'm yeah, this book is good. Just wait for the movie. You guys are going to love it. And then we watched the movie in class. I had never seen the movie.
Oh, you hadn't?
The book is so good that I had 3 images of Leonardo DiCaprio in my head. Yeah. I convinced myself that I saw the movie.
I think the movie's fantastic.
Isn't that crazy? I was watching it and I was wait, I think I just my imagination really went off.
You really did.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the 2013 movie, I haven't seen any of the other ones, but I think it's pretty good. I really like it. And I remember when it came out, everyone was like, it's too magical. It's too, stars and shit. And I was like, okay, have you read the book?
That's exactly what it feels
because,
like.
Nick's literally whoa, look at all this shit. And then, Gatsby's and then, even though it's been 5 years, I think it'll be a good idea to just pretend it hadn't been. And it's like, oh. You can't do that. But, okay, let's get into the general overview. You can...
The cast was really good, too.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have
casting
casted
was great.
it any other way.
Well, and too, what's-his-face? The guy who plays Nick and DiCaprio are, like, tight best friends in real life, and that chemistry I could
Well, it's
feel.
like Tobey Maguire or something.
Yeah,
he has a crazy poker addiction, like a crazy gambling addiction. I think they made a movie about how bad his gambling is. It's like called... Sorry,
that's horrible.
Completely irrelevant.
Well, no, isn't he married or has a kid? No, that's... I always think he's the one who has the kid with Brenda Song from Disney Channel, but that's Macaulay Culkin.
That's Macaulay Culkin.
They feel the
They're
same.
They're both kind of like strung out.
Yeah. They're just tired. Just let them take a nap.
But
just let him go to sleep. But he did really good in that movie.
Oh, they killed it.
Great Nick Carraway.
Yes. Amazing. Nobody else could have done it. Probably.
But this is a quick read. Like it's only 9-ish chapters.
Yeah, sure. Less than 150. 175 maybe.
Yeah, mine says 175. We probably have different editions.
180.
Mine is so old. Oh, God. Yeah, so 180 pages-ish. But the writing is a lot more fantastical. So, like, if you read it in high school, they're like, and really pay attention to, like, the imagery. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I don't want to sometimes. Sometimes I just want to read the fucking book.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things, we don't have to talk about it now, but one of the questions I had that we should talk about at some point is, did reading the book in high school, did it, like, ruin it for a little bit? Or, so, we'll come back to that one, because I have opinions on that.
I hate when people force symbolism into my head.
Oh my God.
They're like, think about a green light. I'm like, fuck you, I'll think about it
That's
if I
another
want
question
to. Like,
I had,
shut
was how do you feel
up.
about the stupid fucking green
That's
light?
the least important part of the fucking book. Whatever. Okay, we'll come back to it.
Yeah, we'll return to that because I've got a lot. Hopefully, this summary's like not too bad because again, it's quick. It all happens really fast too.
It's really quick.
So Nick Carraway is the main character ish. I wouldn't even say he's the main.
He's like our narrator.
He's the narrator, the person who's telling the story, and he moves to New York from the Midwest around like 1926-ish.
Oh, we're starting the golden age.
Yeah, we're going right into jazz, flappers. He's also, like, really reasonable. He fought in the First Great War, and he really values truth and understanding people's lives and their circumstances.
This first page of this book, this whole book
Fucking
is
fire.
great. Reading is important. If you're gonna read one page of any book on the planet,
Read the first one of
the
Gatsby.
first page of this fucking
I
book.
literally, like, I always have, like, all of it highlighted because it's so good. Like, he's, like... Even his dad in it was like, whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages you have.
I think every person on the planet could benefit. He puts that in the second paragraph.
It's like the first weird, real full line.
We're less than 50 words into this book, and he drops the most important knowledge. And then he's like, I'm inclined to reserve all judgments, a habit that, it doesn't even matter. But like this first page...
Not many people are inclined to reserve all judgments, that's for sure.
I fucking love him.
And it really reflects in the book, too. Like, I feel right off the bat, they were like, this is who Nick is, and it was like, right away, yeah.
It's the perfect way to set up a book, and it's not forceful. He just, like, literally says who he is in the most beautiful way possible.
He's like, I'd try not to judge.
It's also advice. Yeah, gorgeous.
Which is awesome. Doesn't happen a lot nowadays, that's for sure. Or even in the book, like, everybody else is judgmental as crap.
Very much so.
So Nick is living in West Egg in a little bungalow, which, like, gives, in the movie, such good cottagecore vibes that's where I want to live.
Even in my brain, it's like...
It's so perfect.
Such a beautiful little cottage.
And then in the book, which they don't do in the movie, is he has a little housekeeper who helps him every once in a while, which
it's
I
like
completely forgot about.
I forget. It was like a
Probably
Swedish. Or they keep calling it. They keep calling her like a Swede or a... I don't. It's
Finn. She's Finnish.
Finnish.
Yeah.
He
actually just calls her Finn.
You know what I mean? Okay. No offense.
Who even does that? West Egg is filled with, like, all kinds of mansions, and they're pretty quick off the bat to go, it's new money, like, people who are making new money. I felt like in high school they were like, take a guess, like, you'll never guess which, and right off the bat he's like, oh yeah, so West Egg's new money and East Egg's old money, and that's where Daisy lives with, Daisy is his cousin who lives with Tom Buchanan, who Nick knew in college. Tom's, like, a couple years older than him, and Tom is aggressive, to say the least.
Everything you think of toxic masculinity.
If whoever wrote this, she is what I wanted to say. Only she, because I don't think another man would portray another man so poorly.
And if he did, he's also gay.
Yeah, true.
I'm so sorry, but some of the ways
If Scott Fitzgerald wrote this, I mean, the way he writes Tom, he's like, wow, he's hot as fuck, but he is such a dick.
Literally, he's like, Tom is so aggressive, but then when he's describing him physically, he's like, he was literally, his muscles were bursting
through the seams. His calves, and you're like, who cares about his calves?
His calves are flowing over his boots. It's insane.
Yeah, so Tom he's a dude. And Daisy, she's obviously very pretty, and she has to, like, temper herself or, like, quench her spirit because she is very smart and all that, but she lives in the 1920s. He also meets Jordan Baker, who's a golfer and more of, like, a free woman of the 20s, while at Tom and Daisy's for dinner. And at this dinner, Nick learns that Tom has a woman in the city as a mistress, and he
In the city.
I love the line about the shrill fifth guest at their dinner for the phone.
Oh, the phone being a guest is so good.
I like that one. That's I have one of the other questions I have is like what are your favorite lines? So think about that too. But yeah, Jordan's like, I thought everybody knew. Tom's got a gal in the city. She's like straight up like while Tom's answering this phone. So apparently they've also had to leave a couple of their other places that they've lived in because Tom has cheated on his wife publicly and gotten caught. Which is so fucked.
It's so embarrassing.
It's like, come on, dude, you don't.
So embarrassing. Honestly, this whole like first dinner in the first chapter is like,
it's got so much going on.
I just love the beginning of this book because it's like so foundational. Like, yeah, like the rest of the story is like fantastical and beautiful, but like this first chapter, you like,
you can feel it, and you really like, I don't know, you just really get it, and it's easy.
It's so easy to get. They're so direct with everything.
Sorry, I just found a line. I just flipped to a random page and found a line about Tom. Not even the effeminate swank of his riding clothes could hide the enormous power of that body.
That's exactly what I've been looking for.
Is that the line you
Yes, because why would he see
He seemed
that?
to fill those glistening boots until he straightened the top lacing, and you could see a great pack of muscles shifting when his shoulder moved under his thin coat. It was a body capable of enormous leverage, a cruel body.
A cruel body. Like,
I feel like that's something, so I've been reading a lot of fantasy lately, like somebody would describe like the big elf king, like, wow, he's got a cruel body.
a cruel body is insane.
But
So
it might be
wild.
pretty, but he's an asshole. At the end of like chapter 1, Nick kind of introduces the audience to Mr. Gatsby, his eccentric new money neighbor who's in this gigantic castle and throws these crazy parties. And Nick describes, he lives in East and West Egg are basically like two peninsulas with a bay in between. And on their way into New York City, there's this place called the Valley of Ashes, which is a desolate part of the town. And one day after lunch with Tom pulls him off the train and introduces him to his mistress and her husband, who are Mr. and Mrs. Wilson.
This shit is crazy.
He's just like, hey, this is my mistress.
Tom's
and
like, wait.
No, the whole time.
Train real quick.
No,
My
literally,
bitch
the whole
is at
time
this
Nick
stop.
is like, I want to leave. And Nick's like, I want to leave. And Tom's like, no. We gotta hop off this fucking train and
My
we gotta
girl's
go.
out here. Bro, your girl's my cousin.
Girl, what do you mean your girl? Daisy doesn't live out here.
Crazy.
And Miss Wilson comes into town with Nick and Tom, where they have this big, like, very intimate party with her sister Catherine and their below neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. McKee. And Mr. McKee is an artist too, and this is the part where it's like not really Nick's vibe, and he tries to leave like 3 times, and Tom's like,
something
stay.
to say about the end of how this ends.
Yeah, I know. It's at the end of chapter 2, I think.
Yeah, I think we just found it.
And, he's eventually persuaded to stay, and Catherine is like, neither of them really like the person they're with. And Nick's like, okay.
Which, if you, in real life, look at relationships, sometimes you will
Sometimes
find
that happens.
that happens more often.
Yeah, and then eventually a fight breaks out between Myrtle, who's Mrs. Wilson, and Tom, and then Tom just straight up breaks her fucking nose.
Yeah, just backhands.
And then I wrote in my notes, weird gay bit.
Yeah, there's such a weird gay bit here at the end that...
Do you want to handle that one?
I think I could just do a summary over it. So, like, Myrtle's, she's bleeding, everybody's freaking out, and then Mr. McKee, the husband of that lives there, like, not the husband, but the neighbor.
The under the stairs neighbor, under the floor.
And Nick, they're like, okay, it's time to go.
We gotta go.
He turns, continues out the door, they're chilling.
And it's just Mr. McKee and Nick at this point.
It's just those two, and then the rest of it, you can tell, like, I think, did Nick say this was the first time in his life he's been drunk? I feel like that's an important...
This is the second time in his life.
The second time in his life. So he's, like, very drunk. This is new for him.
He's out of it.
And these next sentences are, like, if you, like, think of them through, like, drunkenness, he says, this is, like, no context. Come to lunch, he suggested, as we groaned down in the elevator. And then, all of a sudden, there's, like, an elevator boy that's referenced, and he says, keep your hands off the lever.
Mr. McKee's like, me?
I beg your pardon.
I didn't even know
I was touching it.
I didn't even know I was touching it.
What does that even mean? So weird.
And then this next bit, this last paragraph here.
And then all of a sudden, Nick wakes up, standing beside his bed, and he was getting up, and he's in his underwear, and he's looking at his art.
It said he's clad in his underwear, insinuating that Nick is wearing Mr. McKee's underwear.
Which, if I know anything about...
gays.
Drunk people. And just, like, artistic people, it's like, that could happen, and I think that's what might have happened here.
Yeah, it seems like
super weird.
And so, like, the way it happens too is they're in the elevator having this weird lever discussion, and then it's like the next paragraph starts out ...
Yeah.
I was standing beside his bed, which is like, okay, that.
Yeah.
And I never read it that way before as a kid, and I'm sure in high school they were like, please don't nobody mention it. Please nobody mention the gay part.
It's also like, because it feels so choppy, and like, honestly, like, if I read it as a, like, in high school, I'd be like, well, that was a stupid fucking way to write a transition to, like, do you know what I mean?
He must be drunk as fuck.
Just say the night ended, next.
Yeah,
but now it's like, he's very intentional as a writer, and if that's not the intention of this, then I don't understand what's happening.
Because the other intention could be just, like, he's maybe drunk.
Yeah.
But the clad in his underwear and, like, standing in his sheets.
Like, why is he in his bed?
Why is he in somebody else's underwear? He wore his own underwear.
Why are you in that bed? Why are you,
what does that have to do with being an artist?
It doesn't seem...
Also, like, afterwards, they go through Mr. McKee's portfolio, which is exactly what a gay person would do after sex. You gotta look at my art.
It's such a strange thing. Yeah, so that's the first time I've actually ever read that.
That's the first time I read it that way, too. And I remember you mentioned it earlier when we were first talking about doing this episode months ago.
Very long time ago.
And I was reading it, and then I, like, remembered, and I was like, oh. And then I, like, got to that last chapter. I was like, oh.
Yeah. Because you're like, okay, even the lever thing I can get past. It's like, okay, weird. I've pulled levers I shouldn't have pulled before, and I've gotten in trouble for it, and it's been really bad.
I've pressed buttons, I've pulled levers.
So, like, maybe he's, like, having his little, like, intrusive thought moment.
Yeah.
But once you get to the ...
Yeah, the ...
I'm basically naked in his bed. Like,
but, like, no homo.
That's literally
or maybe a little
almost
homo.
Exactly what it says.
Yeah.
So, who knows? Who knows?
Good part.
It's the 1920s. Have your fun.
But as long as you don't cheat on your wife, or if you do, just don't do it publicly.
Yeah.
Duh. And then the next bit, Nick is observing the coming goings of his neighbor, Mr. Gatsby. Like, people are always coming in. There's parties. And then one day, Nick gets, like, an actual paper invitation. He's like, awesome. Like, I cannot wait to go to Mr. Gatsby's party. And I think when I was reading this, I was like, this is an interesting part because, like, usually people just come to Gatsby's, but I think Nick has that, like, Midwest politeness where he's like, well, I can't just show up.
Yeah. He's very polite.
And then when he's there, he's like, I have to find Mr. Gatsby and thank him.
Yeah.
And he's like, I have to. And then, like, to the point where he's like, I don't know what to do anymore. And then that's when he sees Jordan Baker. And he's like, I'm just going to attach myself to her. Like, he literally, he's like,
me.
I need somebody to be with.
He's like, please, just one familiar face, and I'll follow them around this entire night.
Yeah.
And it
like,
doesn't hurt that she's really hot, so he definitely played his cards right that
he's
day.
Definitely, if that was a little gay bit, he's definitely a little bi. Like, because he's like, Jordan is hot as fuck.
Yeah.
And
he's
very
having
into
his
Jordan.
fun.
Yeah, he's just doing what he can. You know, he's just a guy being a dude. And he talks to people, hears all kind of rumors about Gatsby, about how he's killed a man, how he's like a cousin of some German guy, all that kind of stuff. And Nick realizes like nobody really knows a single thing about Gatsby. And at this party, it's like, this party I think is portrayed really well in the movie with like, it's like elaborate, chaotic, and he eventually just like settles into not being able to thank Gatsby. And then some random man starts talking to him. He's like, oh my god, I haven't even been able to thank Mr. Gatsby. And the guy goes, oh, I'm Gatsby. And he's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. And then they talk for a minute, and then Gatsby requests Jordan Baker's like presence. They're gonna talk, which leaves Nick alone for a little bit. And when she comes around again, she's like an hour later, she's like, oh my god, I have the best news in the whole world. And she's like, but I can't tell you. Which would piss me right off.
I fucking hate when people do
I
that.
hate it. Like, just
don't even tell me you learned anything.
Like, shut the fuck up then.
Don't say a thing.
And at the end of this chapter 3, Nick puts a little bit about how these 3 nights that he wrote about, meeting Daisy and Tom, meeting Tom and Myrtle, and then the first party, actually didn't happen back to back. He's like, I know I wrote it like that, but like, I was actually working over the summer. I had other friends. Like, I even had a short affair with another woman. Like, he's like, I also spent a lot of time with Jordan, and he's like, I realized she was kind of overall a liar. She was a dishonest person, and I might be the only honest person I know.
Which is, I've heard some discussion about that. It's like the kind of thing where it's like when somebody is like, I am the most this person ever. Mm-hmm. I'm the most, like, respectful person. I'm the most honest person. I get a little nervous.
Like, what are you hiding?
I'm like, because it's like, for sure, from what we see, he's very honest, but
he's also the writer.
Yeah.
It's like Katniss and Mockingjay, where you're like, you're not very reliable.
Yeah, like, I don't know if I trust you. I trust him to death for some reason, but that's what he wants. Too. But I don't know, there's obviously some weird stuff happens.
Yeah, and like,
and also a friend to all is a friend to none. Sorry, Nick. Like, he's kind of, like, playing all sides.
Yeah.
With, like, how are you gonna, like...
He's, like, the kid between divorced parents, like, no, that's okay.
He's like, no, I love him.
And, like, he, all the time, like, the whole book, like, when he's in uncomfortable situations, he's like, I would like to leave. And somebody else bullies him, either Gatsby, Tom, Daisy, Jordan, somebody bullies him into staying. And he does.
Yeah. He's kind of a little...
He's been in a war. He's, like, 27.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like,
you can back off for, like, 5 minutes.
It's kind of a little...
It doesn't make any sense. So that was chapters 1 through 3. So he really shoves a lot into the first 3 chapters. Like, I would say it's a significant part of the book.
Yeah, I feel like there's never not information being, like
shoved in, like,
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's kind of awesome.
As we keep going, we'll do, like, the next 3 chapters. So, one day in July, Gatsby just shows up, and he's like, Nick, we're going to lunch together. Like I said, Nick gets bullied quite often into doing things. And on this trip together, Gatsby tells him, like, some of his, like, life story about how he was inheriting all this money, then he went into the war, and then afterwards he went to Oxford. And during this, Nick is like, yeah, I can kind of get why people think this guy's lying about things.
Yeah.
And,
I feel like one time he looks at him and he's like, oh, he's like a liar. Like,
yeah,
he says like, something and he's like, oh, he's full of shit.
He looked at me sideways and I knew why Jordan Baker had always believed he was lying.
Mm-hmm. Yep, he was like, okay, I see it. His whole statement fell to pieces. He said, like, the way that he said he was educated at Oxford, he hurried the phrase, choked on it. Yeah, so I think that's interesting.
I'm like, yeah. Yeah.
He's like, wait, you're full of shit. Like, I can see it.
But he's not like, I hate him now. He's just like, okay, well, I think he might be full of shit, and that's not, like, the biggest deal in the whole world.
Yeah.
Because then Gatsby, like, pulls out a medal and a picture. Like, I think it's, every time I see this part, I always think it's funny that he has these pieces of proof on him. Like, he knew dang good and well he was gonna, but he's like, okay, look at this medal and this picture. Please believe me.
Validate me.
Yeah, and then
please validate
Nick's like, okay, yeah, I mean, how can I not? These look real. And then they pop into, like, a weird little rich people food area and meet Mr. Wolfsheim?
Wolfsheim. Oh,
Wolfenstein?
yeah. That's very classic.
Very Jewish guy.
Like, classic stereotype we got here.
Yeah. He's the guy who fixed the World Series, apparently, and he also shows Nick his cufflinks made of human molars.
Which, like, sorry, but that's kind of fucking badass.
It's kind of hard as shit, yeah.
If somebody was like...
You'd freak out. You don't like body bits like that or
I
anything.
know, but then I would know they're not somebody to mess with.
You'd be like, okay, I'll
and that's
back
what he
off.
wanted to say.
Because, like, Mr. Wolfsheim's like, Nick, like, oh my god, Gatsby's the best. Did you know he went to Oxford? And, Nick, this is one of the things that I love so much in the book, is, like, Nick, like, fucking, he's like, man won't stop saying OGG, like, Oxford, like, stop it. That's not how you say it. But, yeah, Mr. Wolfsheim is like, oh my god, Gatsby's the best. Like, he would never involve himself in somebody's marriage. Like, he's really well educated, and Nick's like, okay.
Okay.
All right. And then, like, this guy leaves, and Gatsby's like, oh my god, like, how are you doing? And then, like, Tom's there, and Nick's like, oh, I have to say hi to Tom, and Gatsby just
so
disappears.
fucking funny.
Yeah, Gatsby's like, peace.
He turns 20, he's like, hold on, buddy, I gotta go say hi to my friend. And then he's like, wait, where did he go?
Which I feel, honestly, like, I'd be like, okay, that
I'm
sounds
not
like
saying
that was
hi
enough.
to somebody I don't want to say hi to.
But it's also oddly suspicious.
Yeah. Also, this entire conversation with, like, Wolfsheim
Yeah.
is, like, that's basically just them telling us that, hey, he is involved in very
Gatsby's
shady
involved
stuff.
in nefarious items. I think it's the 20s, so it's Prohibition. They're very, like, trying to hint they never say it if he is a bootlegger. No.
Yeah.
But
it's definitely scammy something.
Yeah, they imply it significantly. Like,
Yeah.
he's on calls all the time with Detroit and Chicago and stuff like that.
But honestly, it's like, I don't really care exactly what he did, so I think that's kind of fun. They don't waste all of our time with, like, learning about some scam. I can read a book about scams in the 1920s if I wanted to.
I can read books about scams all the time. Like,
yeah. But cool, he got money, and he got it in a way that you're not supposed to get. Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm proud of him. But it also shows that, like, Tom is hanging out in the same places as these, like, other guys. So, like, there's not a distinction there between, like,
I
rich
never
and...
thought
Yeah,
about
like,
Tom
there's not,
being
like, a
with
West
the-
Egg, East Egg kind of thing at this establishment. It's
I mean,
like,
once you come to New York,
that's pretty much
maybe that's what that means.
It's like, during, like, he has an afternoon lunch with, with Jordan. And this is when Nick is told the story of how Gatsby and Daisy met 5 years ago. They met at the war stuff. War split them up, but they were, like, big in love. And this is all from the perspective of Jordan. So she's like, then Gatsby disappeared, and we never heard anything for a year. And Daisy ended up getting married to Tom. And on the day before the wedding, she received a letter that said she changed her mind. She drank a shit ton. And they assumed it must have been from Gatsby. But the day after, she marries Tom anyway. And a year later, they have their daughter, which they barely mention.
Oh, yeah.
At, like, once in the second chapter.
Completely.
And then once in, like, the 7th chapter, and that's it. She only gets named once.
Does she have a name?
Yeah, it's Pammy.
Ew.
Yeah, not great.
Daisy and Penny.
Yeah. But then again, they have to keep moving around because Tom keeps getting publicly caught cheating on her.
The first one of getting caught cheating, where is that? Because that was
in the
so
San Francisco when
funny.
he's driving drunk with the woman in his passenger
Was it like
seat.
a babysitter or something, or a house cleaner?
Yeah, she was a
She
house
broke her
cleaner.
arm.
Mm-hmm. And it was in the news and everything. Like, come on, dude, you couldn't have
It's
been
very
a little
Khloe
bit more...
Kardashian and Tristan Thomas. Like,
Yeah, you could have been just a smidge more...
can you cheat in private, please?
Literally.
No, like...
You know how often you could cheat in private back then? They
So
didn't
easy.
have, like, all the crap we found. They didn't have social media, like...
It's the same way, like, it's like, okay, if you don't have, like, cell phones
Yeah.
or anything like cameras, accessible
How are you going to catch a
cameras,
murder? Is that where you're
How are
going?
you catching? You have to be a really bad murderer. You have to be a
Really
really bad
bad.
robber. You have to be a really bad cheater.
Like, how are you getting... Like, she's calling you in the middle of dinner.
Yeah.
What... put some fucking common sense in your juice. Like, what are you doing?
Get your bitches in line, bro.
Literally.
Like, what?
And then he does a bit later when he smashed the shit out of her.
He does. I guess so.
But that was the 1920s way of getting your bitch in line.
It didn't work either.
It didn't. She was still
It
hoeing
really
around.
didn't. Not that we endorse or
don't
condone
beat
any of that.
anybody.
But ideally,
But
if you're gonna do it, it would work. In my opinion.
anyways, Gatsby is requesting through Jordan that that Nick invite Daisy over for tea so he can casually pop by and they can meet again, which feels so very high school. Like,
Oh
he's
my
like,
God.
will you, like, slide a note into her locker? So, and, like, will you say it's from somebody else? But it's like, you're literally 30.
Yep.
You're literally 30 years old.
So embarrassing. No, it's like, well, you're her neighbor, and if I come over to your house, then, like, it's so high school. It's like,
well, what if we go for a walk around the block a couple times in front of her house? It's like, what? So, I also wonder how Gatsby knew Nick knew Daisy. It must have been through Jordan or something.
Jordan must have brought it up. So I know Daisy had asked Jordan when Jordan had been like, oh, you live over
at the first invite.
Yeah, so Jordan knew Nick was the neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
So Jordan was probably like, oh, yeah, you're the neighbor of Nick, who I know.
Yeah.
Because Daisy, who recognized your name.
I think that cat's gonna get up with you. Move your book and pat the pillow. See, he's
Which
gonna
for
come
me-
up there with you.
Hi, cutie.
Oh,
Okay.
he just said your feet are too stinky.
Gosh.
I'm kidding. He's just a bitch.
But for me, if I was Jordan, I'm always trying to figure out how all the random people in my life know each other.
and
I'm
she's
like,
totally nosy like that.
oh, you know, how do you know her?
Oh,
That's like my favorite game to play.
It's like trying to put a family tree together.
Exactly.
Which I know because I've done mine for warrior cats.
Which I can imagine.
It's a little chaotic.
It's not as easy.
But this
as
is
you
the
might
real
think.
life version of it. At home, Nick meets Gatsby, who's like super like it's so high school at this point. Like, he's like, oh, like, you don't have to do it. And Nick's like, no, I'd be happy to. What day works for you? And Gatsby's like, no, for you. What day works best for you?
I think this is where Gatsby is the only time from my perspective where Gatsby appears charming in any way.
Yeah, because he's like a real human.
I think it is like just like very sincere how nervous he is. And I like once you get to like when he's at his parties and he's being like flexing.
It's like, I'm Mr. Gatsby.
New
It's like,
jazz,
come
this whole thing, but no, when this very sincere from him.
These like 2 or 3 days where he's like so like, because even then like
nervous.
Nick's like, I'm happy to invite, and like Gatsby's like, okay, I'm just gonna like clean your whole house and get a bunch of flowers.
Get your lawn mowed, like.
To the point where like Daisy shows up and she's like jokingly but like a little freak. She's like, you're not in love with me, are you?
Yeah, I was just like, what the hell is going on?
Which to me as like a human in this era, I'm like, aren't you guys cousins? Like,
They're cousins removed.
second cousins or something
Yeah.
once removed, but still, I'm
And
like,
something weird. I remember looking up
their family tree.
Yeah, there's something weird going on in their family. We'll talk about that later if we have time.
But Daisy and Gatsby, when they first meet each other, super uncomfortable, like barely talking, and Nick's like, I'd like to leave. Like, this is
I
another one
don't
where
have
he's
to
like,
be here.
and he actually does. He's like, I'm just gonna go, and like he literally just sits in the rain outside of his house.
I forgot about that.
until he feels like he can go back in, which is probably like 30 minutes to an hour. He's just out in the rain because these two want to hold hands or something.
That's so awkward.
And then like Gatsby's like, Daisy, like, Nick, you guys have to come to my house. And Nick's like, I don't want to. And Gatsby's like, nonsense. But in my like brain, like, I think it's more of like he feels like he needs a chaperone. Mm-hmm. Like again, like, this is back when like they first met and they needed chaperones, or like he's uncomfortable because she's something like that. He doesn't want to make her, all that kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's partially that, but then also I get like part of it. It's like I think they're also so removed from reality and how they feel about each other, Gatsby and Daisy both, where it's like if Nick is always there, then it's always like still
like
gonna be partially surface level. Like they never have to like be like, oh, does this actually make any sense? Like, are our feelings valid? Because they're not going to talk about all their feelings.
They're like, oh, perfect, look at all these shirts. like when Daisy starts crying at the shirt.
Oh my god, I fucking hate that line.
Oh, these are such beautiful shirts. Shut up.
It's like, okay, wow. So this is like the point in the book where I still love this book, but it gets a little tacky.
Yeah.
For me, that line is so...
And I still, like, barely get it. I'm like,
okay, wow. I think it's like, oh...
It's like the inclusion for me of, like, the guy in the library and then the car scene. I'm like, I just don't care. Not fucking relevant.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care.
It's just like, okay.
I
just
literally
say, like,
didn't even include
wow,
it.
the luxury that you have access to is so beautiful.
She's so excited
Look
now.
at the life that we could have had together.
Yeah.
And then crying over a
shut
shirt.
up.
Yeah, something about it. I turn kind of into not an active Daisy hater. It's just...
Oh, I don't like Daisy at all.
Okay, cool. F. Scott Fitzgerald is writing her to be completely intolerable. Like, I
so
hate her.
She's awful.
Oh my god.
I prefer being friends with Jordan than Daisy.
For sure.
Because Jordan is at least clear that she's a liar and a cheat sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she's aware of her dishonesty, but Daisy's like, no, not me.
She's also just like... She's kind of a nothing character.
Honestly, I'd kind
She's
of
like,
vibe with Myrtle even over Daisy.
Yeah, honestly, Myrtle can party.
Not
at
cool
least.
cheating, but like...
At least she can party.
Yeah.
But, like, for me, Daisy's just one of those characters where it's like, here's a pretty girl that everybody gets to project their emotions onto. That is the
Literally.
purpose she serves.
Yeah.
And she's not a person.
And she's, like, aware of it, too. Because, like, remember at the beginning when she talks about her daughter, she's like, and I was so glad she was a girl. Because, like, I hope she's dumb. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, that is, like, the one line that we know is confirmed written by Zelda.
Of course, it had to have been.
Yeah.
Like, there's just no... F. Scott would be able to be like, at least she's a girl. She better have big old honkers. Like,
Yeah.
some shit like
Crazy.
Yeah, at the house, you know, they're doing weird rich people shit where Gatsby's just, like, showing her everything. And, you know, this is when...
That's me when somebody comes over and I want to show them my trinkets.
Look at all my things. Look at all my boxes.
I got this at the thrift store.
And then this is when they talk about the stupid green light, and Nick, like, even he's like sitting there, he's like, I don't even know why I'm here. I'm completely forgotten.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Nick a little bit.
It's so awkward. It's like more than a third wheel because they're dependent on him.
They're completely dependent on him.
And I really do think it's like a buffer situation where they're like, he's the only, like, viable connector of them at this point in their lives.
Yeah.
Like, they know they don't
him.
have a future together.
Mm-hmm.
They know their relationship is, like, just...
It's all surface level again
hot,
at this point.
You're hot.
But except for on Gatsby's side, it's you're hot. Let's go back 5 years. Let's pretend 5 years didn't happen. And Daisy's like, things actually happened for me in the last 5 years. Like, I have a kid.
Yeah. She's like, would love to, but I'm actually just going to entertain this for a while because I'm having a good time.
Yeah, literally. I'm just, like, fucking vibing. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it feels a little bit like maybe she would want to get back at Tom for all of his cheating.
Yeah.
I can feel.
Let's go, girl. Live your truth.
Okay, queen.
Live your truth.
And at this part is where we learn Gatsby's real life story. He was his real life story, not the real fake one he told Nick in the car, where he was a son of a poor family in the Midwest, left home early. They also kind of imply that Gatsby was high-key a slut during this time.
Oh, I have to be.
I know, I'll read it.
Wait, what did they imply? I forget.
They say he was a slut. I have to find it, because it was good.
Wasn't he from something weird, like North Dakota?
Yeah, or Minnesota or something like that. But here, so, like,
What page are you on?
For me, it's 98. You're right, North Dakota. He knew women early, and since they spoiled him, he became contemptuous of them, of young virgins because they were ignorant, of others because they were hysterical about things, and his overwhelming self-absorption he took for granted. So basically, he's like,
awesome.
Gatsby was kind of a slut, high-key.
But he's also getting spoiled.
Yeah, he's probably got some good sugar mamas.
That's awesome.
During that time. So, at this point he was working at Lake Superior in Michigan, and some random guy named Dan Cody had anchored his yacht in a bad spot. So Gatsby went out to help him and ended up living and learning all he could from mysterious millionaire Dan Cody. And they ended up sailing around the world 3 times, which sounds really fun in theory.
Sorry, this part has always made me laugh. This is how he meets Dan Cody. He had been coasting all along, like, shores, and when he turned up as, like, Jay Gatsby's Destiny and Little Girl Bay. Why did it have to be Little Girl Bay? Sorry, that has a terrible ring to it. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I see it there.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, I don't like that either.
Huh. I know, it's just like a weird little detail. It could have been anything else.
Bay. Yeah, I don't like that either. But then eventually they insinuate that Dan Cody had been murdered by his money-hungry wife. And...
women.
Bitches, am I right?
What can you do?
I mean, murder your husband and get all of his money.
There's one winner in this book, and it's her.
It's really, truly. And Gatsby never received his rightful inheritance, but he was left with his education from this period. And so here Nick also discusses a time where Tom and a few other folk rode horses up to Gatsby's house, and they were like, Gatsby goes away for a minute, and the three of them, who are all these like posh old money people, they're like, why does he not get any of our social cues? Like, he is weird as fuck. Like, to the point where like Nick feels like he has to like defend him.
Defend your man, Nick.
Get him, Nick. And it's all really weird. And, like, if it was this day and age, people would be like, is Gatsby autism coded? No, I think he's just kind of a
Everybody's autism coded.
It's just the autism. But then Tom and Daisy come to one of Gatsby's party, and Tom becomes the polo player, which he hates, and I love. And Daisy and Gatsby walk around, and Daisy doesn't like it, but pretends to make Gatsby happy, and also to spite Tom because Tom hates it so much.
She does love to piss him off. It does happen at the first dinner party where she keeps calling him, like, a word for strong, but it's, like, kind of a roast.
A brute.
A brute.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, you know I hate that, and she'll say it, like, three
She's
more
like,
times.
And?
Love her for that.
And? What are you gonna do? Beat her, probably, but, like, slightly.
My little menace. No, main wife usually doesn't get beaten. He has to focus all that rage on
the second
on the mistress.
After they leave, Gatsby's like, I just want to start over with Daisy back from the beginning as if the last 5 years never happened, and I want her to tell Tom she never loved him. And Nick's like, hey, let's kind of bring it down to reality. That's a lot to ask. You can't repeat the past. And he's like, no, I think we're gonna do that. Because, like, Gatsby, like, knew that when he kissed Daisy all those years ago, he knew damn good and well his life would change forever, but it all feels very one-sided.
It also feels like, for me, he's not, like, all, like, oh, it's changing because I met the love of my life, and now my soul
she's a
is
possession
fulfilled.
now.
Yeah, and his closeness to her represents, like, his success.
Yeah, because he was born poor and all that.
And if he is with Daisy, then that is, like, his destiny that he's talking about, is that he gets to be invited into the upper echelon. He
is, like, he also kind of, well, Nick compares him to, like, God a lot. Like Gatsby is his own god. Not, like, the god, but, like, his own god. Which would be a pretty big compliment back.
Yeah.
So these are the last chapters now. We're on 7 to 9. And this is kind of where the scandal happens. Where Gatsby kind of shuts everything down. Daisy and Gatsby are having a full-blown affair. Gatsby stops his parties, fires his staff. And a few days later, which this part goes really quick, Gatsby calls Nick and invites him over to dinner at Daisy and Tom's, which is weird.
Super weird.
But he's like, don't worry, Jordan will be there. And Nick's like, oh my god, something's going on. Like, oh my god, I so don't want to do this.
So weird.
But he's polite, so he does. And it's like the hottest day ever for him. And I love this scene in the movie. This is one of my favorite scenes.
Oh, it's so stressful.
It's so stressful. But I love that, like, Nick and Jordan are just like, But yeah, so it's already, like, right off the bat uncomfy. Like, because everybody there knows that Gatsby and Daisy are having an affair. Everybody there knows that Tom and somebody else are having an affair. Except for Nick knows who Tom's mistress is. Jordan knows both of these things are happening and loves the gossip. And Gatsby's there hoping that Daisy's gonna tell Tom that she never loved him. So that's everything that's going on.
There's a lot of moving parts here.
Like, at some point, Tom leaves the room and to get them drinks, and Gatsby kisses Daisy in front of everybody. And Jordan's like, there are ladies present.
He's so crazy.
I'm like, chill. So, anyway.
Also, just to, like, say how crazy Gatsby is right now, he fired all of his house staff.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want anyone to gossip about him and Daisy.
Yeah.
Like, this man is full into a mania right now.
Like, something's wrong with him.
Something's wrong. Everything is on the line for this.
And there's not a clear timeline, but considering when did they? One day in July, so, like, let's say early July. July 10th is when Gatsby's like, hey, here's my fake life story. Go talk to Jordan. And that's when
I think this isn't in August. This is one, right?
Yeah, like, the leaves are starting to change colors. So, I mean, even now, so maybe late August, early September.
Yeah.
So this has all happened over a period of 2 months where Daisy's been full-blown having an affair with Gatsby, probably. Yikes.
Really crazy.
So again, like, it's really uncomfy. Like, even Tom's, like, in a mania. Like, but the two aggressive men in this room are in weird moods.
Super weird.
They then decide, like, oh, let's just go downtown, and then they do the car switch.
It's basically the car switch metaphor. I don't really understand it. I don't know
I get
how
it.
to say it in, like, a non, like, it feels, like, very,
like, offensive?
No, it's just, like, it's like when men in their cars.
Yeah. Just guys being dudes, like...
They're like, oh, yeah, you think yours rides well?
Let's switch.
Let me show you.
And Tom's, like, ordering all this. So he's like, no, I'll take your car, Gatsby. And Gatsby's like, no. And he's like, no, seriously, I'm taking your car. And then Daisy kind of pops out, and she's like, I'll ride with Gatsby then.
Which, she's so crazy for that.
Fucking insane. And that's when shit really, really, really hits the fan.
Because why would she say that?
Why would she do that? Because, like, Nick and Jordan are just, like, I imagine them in the backseat, like, terrified children, like something's wrong. Because Nick is just like, I'm not fucking dumb. Like, I know what's going on. And then has the audacity to stop by his mistress's gas station. And then at his mistress's gas station, Mr. Wilson's looking, like, sickly pale. He's like, we're leaving town. I found out some news about my wife, and we're just gonna head out west. And this is when Tom realizes that in the span of one day he could possibly lose his two women. I'm sure there's more, but two of his main girls. Even though I will say, again, he has a daughter. He has, like...
Oh, that's not important.
Not at all.
This is so irrelevant.
Like, even in the movie, I think they did a good job because, like, I fucking completely forget they have a daughter. They go to a hotel, and it's so awkward and uncomfortable, and Nick's just, like, there. And so's Jordan. Like, it's just Jordan and Nick kind of like...
So weird.
And Tom, like... They go through all this where Tom, like... is like, Gatsby, you're not, like, a real blah blah blah. And Daisy's like, I will not have any of this. And then Tom's like, okay, let's just get straight to the fucking point. Why are you fucking my wife?
Let's put it all out there.
And then Daisy's, like, super uncomfy, and he's, like, going, like, back and forth, and he's like, tell Tom you never loved him. Like, at this point, Gatsby... So crazy. And Gatsby is becoming very, like, aggressive in the way that, like, Tom is at this point.
Yeah.
And so, like, he's, like, talking over her, like, saying what she's feeling. And, you know, Daisy's even like, no, fuck you, Tom. Like, I do actually hate you. And then Gatsby's like, well, say you don't love him. Like, you've never loved him.
Don't love is crazy.
And,
because that's such a big ask.
And obviously she can't say that.
5 years. Say you've never loved him.
Never, like, even people I don't like, I've liked at some point, probably.
Yeah. I can hate somebody, but I won't be able to say I never liked them.
Like, and that's such a big, and again, I feel like it's like a courtroom with these witnesses of Jordan and Nick. Yes. And again, they're not saying shit this whole fucking time. They're just observing. And then Tom, like, he can kind of feel that Gatsby's, like, starting to get on edge. So he starts really egging him on to piss him off. And then Gatsby does freak out, which scares Daisy. And they kind of, like, Tom immediately realizes he's won.
Yeah.
And
What to say? It was really good. I don't know. I think he just kind of got her back on his side.
Yeah, because, like, I think... What did he do?
Also, I think it's weird, like, Gatsby keeps being like, this has been going on for 5 years, but also, like, it hasn't.
Yeah, he's like, this affair has been going on for 5 years. And Tom's like, 5 years?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, no.
No.
And then so Tom's
I
like,
thought
oh,
about
so
it
no.
for that long, though.
But it's been happening in my head every single night before bed. And then Tom even like, well, then that doesn't count.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, Tom keeps a really level head.
No, honestly, no, it sucks to say, but, like, it's one of those things where sometimes when you're, like, witnessing an argument and the person you want to lose is, like, you're like,
Like, shit.
that was a really good comeback.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. It's happened to me before, too, where I'm like, damn, you absolutely beat me.
Literally.
Verbally, but...
And Tom totally, like...
Tom
must have been able to read Gatsby like a fucking book because he picked all the right buttons to press. He knows Daisy. They might be, like, weird 1920s married where he's cheating on her all the time. But they've been married for 5 years.
Yeah. And then, so this is a good one where Daisy's like, I never loved him. And then Tom's like, not the day I carried you down to keep your shoes dry? Really? And she's like,
fuck. Which I think is honestly, like, kind of sweet of Tom. Like, to be like, listen, like, because, like, there are people who can love multiple people. There is polyamory. This is not it.
Yeah.
This is not an open relationship.
Yeah.
But he can still love Daisy and be an asshole.
Exactly.
Which seems like what it is.
Uh-huh.
And he's reminding her of that. Is like, he's literally like, we'll do something different. He's not in so many words, being like, I am an asshole, but, like, I do love you and you love me. Or at least some version of that.
Yeah. And then, like, Tom has a really good point where he's like, how do you want, like, her to say that she never loved me and that she loved you the whole time? She didn't even know you were alive.
Literally.
Like, you weren't even around.
Yeah, like, what do you want? Like, and he's got, like, and again, they're both talking over Daisy at this point. Like, Daisy's, like, interjecting every once in a while.
Well, because as soon as Tom says that, Gatsby goes, I want to speak to her alone. She's all excited now.
Yeah, Gatsby's like, fuck.
That's a crazy
It's like
thing
in a
to
courtroom
say.
when they're like, please calm the witness. The witness needs to be calmed.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so during this whole thing, Tom, at the end, like, when Tom knows he's won, he then commands, like, he's like, you two leave. What's his face? Gatsby and Daisy, you guys leave. Take Gatsby's car. Like, he's immediately back into commando mode. Like, he's like, you guys leave, take the car. Nick, Jordan, and I will head off here in a minute. And Nick's just sitting there, again observing, and he goes, oh, today's my birthday.
Which is so funny.
So fucking funny.
Like, that is so funny.
Oh, today's my birthday. Like, he was so involved in everything else that was going on. He couldn't even be bothered to... And it's, like, a big birthday. It's his 30th birthday.
Oh, God, I wish we knew what day it was.
Oh,
I feel
right.
like it's August. So he could totally be a Virgo.
A Virgo?
If it's early September. He's a Virgo.
So it's got to be early September, late August.
Yeah, he could totally be a Virgo. Also, like, right in this chapter, like, Tom does kind of go off on, like, doing some more research into what Gatsby does. And he's like, you're totally a bootlegger.
Yeah.
So that's, like, a soft confirmation there.
Yeah, and he brings up, like, too, like, he's like, I might not have always been honest to you, which, like, he fucking hasn't, but he's like, but Gatsby's no fucking different. Like, he's lying to you right now. Like, there are lies happening on both sides.
Yeah. Which I agree. I don't know that if she had ended up with Gatsby, if her life would have been all that different.
I don't think it was either.
She would just get the honeymoon phase for a little longer again.
Yeah.
And then what?
He'd cheat on her. He'd
Right.
find somebody else who was...
Because once he has it...
And the way, like, Tom knows he's won is, like, they're kind of... Gatsby's got this, like, weird look on his face, and he begins, like, talking to Daisy, like, kind of how you talk to a dog, like, oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Like, talking, like, in that kind of excited voice, like, to Daisy. And she goes, "Please, Tom, I can't stand this anymore." Kind of picking Tom, which is upsetting, but I get it.
Says whatever courage she had was definitely gone.
Yeah, he not only did Tom kick it out of her, but Gatsby, with all of his lies and, like, the way he responded to Tom, kind of, like, was throwing it away, too. Like, there was nothing left.
Yeah.
So, as Jordan, Nick, and Tom make their way back, they stop by Mr. Wilson's house, and this is when they learn that Mrs. Wilson, Myrtle, Tom's mistress, has been hit and killed by a yellow car.
Crazy. Which,
not a lawyer, not advice. Don't do crimes in fucking very clear vehicles.
Literally.
Get a black Subaru.
Yep.
It's not that hard. And it's clear to them three who has killed Mrs. Wilson. It's obviously Gatsby to them. And so at this point, which is, like, so funny, Tom hints very heavily to Mr. Wilson that it was Gatsby who committed this crime.
Yeah.
Like he all but saying Mr. Gatsby's name. He's like, it was Gatsby. And then later when they're home, Nick snaps at Jordan, who's, like, just trying to behave like everything's fucking chill. She's like, come on, let's head into the house. And he's like, no, I need a minute. She's like, what? Ugh. And he's like, no, seriously, like, I need a fucking minute.
Yeah, somebody died.
Yeah, like, somebody's fucking dead. Like,
somebody
I can't even remember what she says. It's so annoying, actually. Let me see.
No, but, okay, here's another funny one. When Tom, Jordan, and Nick are driving up, and they see outside of Myrtle's house, that there's, like, a wreck. Tom goes, that's good. Once the husband will have a little
bit of business. Not exactly.
But the reaction he, like, had when he did actually realize she was dead was pretty messed up. He was, like, pretty impacted, right?
Yeah. He was, like, I mean, like, and I think he was impacted, but I think he was more impacted because he was the one driving the yellow car when they passed through earlier. So when Mr. Wilson saw him, it was the assumption that Tom was the one who killed. So he's immediately like, no, everybody, I just pulled up in that car.
Yeah.
Not me, like, as cash as he can be, but he's, like, obviously heartbroken, but still trying to set up his alibi. Which is funny. And yeah, so like I was saying, Jordan's like, won't you come in, Nick? And he's like, no, I'm feeling sick. And she's like, it's only 9:30. That's actually not the issue.
So crazy.
And he's like, basically like, I'd be damned if I'd go in. I am sick of all these fucking people.
Yeah, like, this is too much.
And then he kind of goes for a walk around, and that's when he sees Gatsby in the garden, who, and not as many words, confirms that Daisy was actually the one driving the car who killed Myrtle. Which, again, I love the irony that neither Gatsby nor Daisy knew that Myrtle was the affair partner. Only Nick knows that. Nick and not even Jordan
might not
knows
even
that.
know, yeah.
So Nick is the only one who can see the irony
and he just has to live with that.
Like,
Also, Gatsby's crazy because when he first sees Nick, he goes, did you see any trouble on the road?
Yeah, he's like, hey,
do you see anything? You guys fully killed someone.
And, like, in the book, the way they describe it, like, I guess a little mini trigger warning is that they basically hit her in the chest and, like, kind of sliced open her chest area. So it was no mistaking that she had been dead.
Yeah.
And even the witnesses at Wilson's, they can hear him saying...
This is also an interesting thing that when, like, this is, like, the first time when Nick is talking to him, where, like, Gatsby's like, I had a feeling like she didn't survive or whatever, but he was like, I don't think anybody saw us.
Yeah.
And then Nick goes verbatim, he said, I disliked him so much by this time that I didn't find it necessary to tell him that he was wrong. So this is the first time where he's just like, it's not only like these people in general are crazy, it's like Gatsby's crazy. He's like part of...
Gatsby's also in this grouping, which is upsetting for him because at this point he had kind of put Gatsby on a pedestal. Like, there's this thing he says right at the very beginning that's one of my favorite lines. He says, Gatsby, if personality is an unbroken series of successful gestures, then there was something gorgeous about him, referring to Gatsby. Some heightened sensitivity to the promise of life, as if he were related to one of those intricate machines that registers earthquake 10,000 miles away. So he is, like, putting Gatsby as high as he can be.
Yeah.
And at this point, he's literally, like, the only one seemingly affected by this woman's death.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the only one who cared, like, because, like, Gatsby's like, Daisy seemed like she was doing okay afterwards. And he's like, I do not give a shit about Daisy.
Yeah.
You literally killed a woman.
Literally. And I think it's strange, like, also, like, part of the reason that Myrtle died is she was running towards the car that she last saw Tom in.
Yeah, so she was trying to get to Tom.
It was, like, her escape from her husband.
Because her husband was, at this point, physically abusing her because he had found out she had cheated on him.
Only to be run over unknowingly.
By her Mr.'s wife.
Complicated.
And his wife's Mr.
Very complicated.
So, it's all very telenovela. Like,
very telenovela.
I would rewatch a movie version of this as a telenovela.
Yes.
That would be really good.
That would be amazing.
Somebody do that. And tag Faith and I and TNTN.
Please get to work.
We're trademarking it. So, when Nick gets home, he, like, can't really sleep. Obviously, like, they saw her body as well. So, that would be, like, really fucking not good for anybody's mentality. And, Gatsby's cleaning his gross car, and that's actually the night Gatsby tells Nick all the real truth about his story. And then he knew, like, I didn't like this line. So when he first saw Daisy, she was the first nice girl he'd ever met. And basically, as soon as, like, first night he met her, he felt as if he was already married to her. So he already felt like he possessed this girl at this point. She was probably, 16? He was probably 22 or something crazy.
He was probably 18, recently drafted.
Fingers crossed.
Age gaps don't count.
Not in books where they don't actually mention anybody's age. So I also want to point out that they had one single month.
Yes.
Of this love affair, if you can even call it that. Which feels very Twilight.
Yeah, no, it really is so, like, all or nothing for no reason.
Literally. And during this night into morning, Gatsby's obviously acting erratic and strange. He's, like, loving Daisy, waiting for her to call. He's worried Tom's gonna beat her, but Nick feels very reassured that is not gonna happen.
Yeah. Because he, like, looks into the window or something.
Yeah, weird. He, like, peeks in when they're at the garden. He's, like, and they're, like, intimately discussing something.
Yeah. He said it looked like they were plotting or scheming.
Yeah.
He's like, they don't look unhappy.
No, they don't. Nobody looks like somebody just died.
And that's kind of like, they're like the quintessential toxic couple where they're like, wow, a lot just happened. What's our next move, babe?
Yeah, well, that sucks. What do we do now? And it's like, are we going to acknowledge the literal death in the room?
You just move forward.
Yeah, so during, like, this erratic morning, one of the servants come by, he's like, I'm gonna drain the pool, and Gatsby's like, no, don't do that, I haven't been in the pool, and he's like, oh, Nick, do you want to join me in the pool? And Nick's like, I actually have to go to work. Like, I literally work today. So, he ends up calling Jordan, and they argue, and she's like, you were kind of mean to me last night.
Oh my God.
That's literally, she says something like...
She's so trauma.
It's so interesting, and, yeah, it's not great, but he also ends up calling Gatsby, but they're like, we're holding the line, so hang up, and he never gets to talk to Gatsby. And then Nick, like, after reading the newspaper, kind of reflects on the events of what happens next, because he wasn't there. Mm-hmm. He had read the paper where Mr. Wilson had been determined to figure out who the car was owned by, and again, Tom had basically been like, oh, it's Gatsby. He lives right over in West.
Yeah, it's one of my neighbors for sure. It's over there. You should go look.
And there was nothing holding him back. There was a Greek gentleman who stayed with Mr. Wilson for a significant amount of this time, and when he left to go to bed, Mr. Wilson had disappeared. So at this point, he's walking all the way over to the eggs to get Gatsby. And, at this point, Gatsby's still waiting for the call in the pool, and it was one of his house workers that heard the shots, where Gatsby was dead in the pool and Wilson's body was a little ways off. And Nick thinks back to, like, the days after Gatsby's death and how the newspapers betrayed Gatsby, and so did everybody in his life. And how Gatsby was made to be Myrtle's mistress, and that he killed her on purpose, and then, you know, then Mr. Wilson was just killing, you know, doing right by his wife.
Yeah.
And Nick even tries to call, like, Daisy, but they had moved. And this must have happened within a week.
Yeah.
They fucking packed it and
they
were
booted. Up and out of there.
Which, again, the only person who knows the truth is Nick.
That's just a lot to, like...
And they shoved this in the last 10 pages. Yeah, like 10, 15 pages.
They get it out quick.
Because, like, the last, like, 15 are really where Nick's just fucking flabbergasted about how nobody cares about Gatsby. Mm-hmm. And except for Gatsby's father, who comes in and he's, like, you know, just some hillbilly from out in the Midwest.
So wholesome.
And, like, he's, like, just wishing he had gotten more time with his son. But everybody Nick talks to either implied that Gatsby got what he deserved or they needed something from his estate. And no one's like, this is really sad.
Yeah.
And at the funeral, literally no one comes.
Yeah, him and his dad are the only...
Which is honestly devastating. Like,
yeah, whenever there's, like, a small funeral for somebody in, like, a fictional story, I'm always like, oh.
Yeah.
That says it all.
And so Nick kind of says, like, these are the last couple bits where he was like, after this, like, the East End was completely haunted for me. Like, it was not home. Mm. And before he left, one day he just sees Tom Buchanan in New York. And he's like, oh, hey. And Tom's like, hey, how are you doing? Oh, and Nick's like, yo, what the fuck? What did you tell Mr. Wilson that night that he went and killed Gatsby? And Tom's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm completely innocent. I don't know what you're talking about. And Nick's just like, he's like, they are all horrible people, and Gatsby was above them. And when Nick leaves, like, the big-ass mansion is completely empty, and he goes to the beach and remembers the green light that Gatsby had put so much hope in. And basically, he's like, we just gotta, like, we can't deal with the past. Like the past is the past. We just gotta keep going. Mm. And that's kind of how the book ends.
Unsatisfying.
So unsatisfying. I wish he would have thrown a punch at Tom or something.
Yeah, he's too much of a baby piss boy. But I do like that they throw in, like, a little bit at the beginning of this chapter, just, like, more about, like, how Gatsby was, like, idolizing their relationship. Basically, like, when he was younger, like, we talked about it a little bit, but it's a lot of, like, him feeling like he, like, he took what he could get at the time. Yeah. And then, like, I think probably took her virginity is what it is.
They insinuate, because there's a lot of white imagery in the book.
Yeah, so I think he, like, took her that, and then it's, like, he feels a little guilty for it, and then he's like, well, that's
now
what
he feels like he possesses her, like...
Yeah, so I think that plays a
despite
big role
him kind of being a whore.
Yeah, well, he's a man, so...
Men are allowed to be whores, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's the book.
Crazy book.
And now we're going to move on to discussion. Discussion time.
Discussion.
So we already talked about how, like, some of these questions, so I think we should start with the how did reading the book in high school, do you feel like it did anything?
I think this is, like, a really good book for teachers to teach in high school, because there's a lot of, like, if you don't like to read, then one, it's really engaging.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, like we said, symbolism that you can, like, force down a teenager's throat if they are not good at, like, looking for that kind of thing. Yeah. You can be like, see the green lights, see the eyeballs. It's like
shut up about them.
For sure there's symbolism, but it's almost, like, literal at that point.
Yeah. I mean, they literally say, like, with the eyes, they're literally, like...
Their eyes, they're watching, like...
Well, and at one point, Mr. Wilson's, like, shoving Myrtle against the wall, and he's like, look, and, like, the eyes, and the Greek guy's like, what the fuck do you mean? They're literally, it's a picture.
Yeah, so that's why it's, like, the symbolism is what pisses me off the most about this book, because it's, like, I feel like there's so many other, like, points throughout the book where you can, like, find the hidden meaning, but then when whenever an author starts to force things that hard, I just start to get annoyed, but I think that's why it makes it a good high school book for
Yeah.
people.
I can definitely say, because, like, the two big ones are the three, it's, like, the eyes, the symbolism of the new and old money from the eggs, and then the stupid green light. And, one of the other ones I found was, like, a lot of the description of the women are, like, white. Everybody gets white.
Yeah. And there's some weird stuff with Daisy where Daisy doesn't get white. There's a part at the beginning of the dinner, where, like, Tom is talking about how they're all...
Oh, I actually have it right here.
Yeah, do you have it?
Flipped to the page.
Like, that was the first time I read it like that. It was so weird.
I did, when you mentioned it, because, like, Tom's going off on this tirade about how we cannot allow interracial marriage, which is, like, awesome, great. You think a book written almost 100 years ago would not have similar things. But he's like,
it's such a
it is up to us who are the dominant race to watch out for these other races. And this whole time Daisy's like, okay, Tom.
She's kind of pushing back.
And then he goes, the idea that we're Nordics, I am, you are, and then he pauses and he includes Daisy after a significant pause. And she winks at Nick.
It's just so funny. And then I also think it does say something about how, like, they're not related.
Nick and Daisy.
By blood.
Yeah,
they're related by marriage.
Yeah.
And then there are just some references to, like, Daisy being, like, slightly othered in some way. And then another one that I thought was weird, which might have just been a phrase at the time, where she's talking about how she knows Jordan from, like, being a teenager in Louisville. And she said, I know her from my white girlhood.
Yeah, there is a lot of weird whiteness and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's almost like she's like, oh, that fit.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then there's, like, okay, there's only one part of this book that I, like, truly just, like, cannot wrap my head around why it's included. And it's during that dinner where Tom steps away to take the phone call.
Yeah.
And Daisy goes, do you want to hear the family secret?
Yeah.
Why is that? Okay, for context. The family secret she tries to tell. She doesn't finish it. She says, that's the butler. Do you see the butler's nose? And he says, yeah. And it's something about how he used to be a silver polisher. And
it started affecting his nose. And then things went from bad to worse till he had to give up the position, and that's it.
And to me, that's not a family secret, because one, it's the butler. So, kitty cat.
Bad cat. We can keep going.
So one, that either implies that the butler is a member of the family.
Yeah.
And in knowing...
Which would kind of go along with the fact that Daisy might not be a white person, because
any reference to a nose in a book from this era, I'm sorry not to be racist
there's
myself.
So much.
But
No, it's significant in this book. Significant. They even use the Jewish slur, the K slur, that I didn't know was a slur.
Yeah, I mean, that's one where it's like, what are you even saying?
Literally.
But, no, so to me, that's how I read that too, where it's like...
Yeah.
Maybe. I also looked it up online because I was so confused about it, and some theories were that they were saying that since it was like a implication that they don't have as much money as you think they would because they're hiring people that aren't qualified for their jobs. They're hiring random people. They're like hiring this random silver shiner to be a butler instead of like... But I don't think that's as valid.
I don't know. I think... So if we're going with Fitzgerald wrote this, who is mighty anti-Semitic.
Yeah, and there's two things that
it could just be a racist thing about his nose.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
But
I don't understand that either. There's still no
reason to say it's a family secret. Do you want to hear a secret about the butler's nose? Or you could say, do you want to hear a secret about the butler? But he threw in those two. So that one always fucks with me.
Yeah, and these are the types of themes that we don't talk about in school. Really, they're like, who's Gatsby's foil? I'm like, I've never used the word foil since this fucking book.
Never important.
And it's just, I think in high school it just got me so riled up about like all these other different things, because like, I don't know, there's just like other important symbolism and stuff. Like, I don't give a. This goes into my next question. What are your thoughts about the green light? I don't give a shit about the green light.
We just said, like, the symbolism is... There's so much else going on.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't need a green light. Maybe there's people out there, readers out there, who need that kind of thing. Obviously, he was pining for the whole
He's
time.
He's an incel.
Yes, and he's a
He's
freak,
an incel.
obsessive bitch. And it's like, I don't think there needed to be a green light. He could have just been looking from shore to shore.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing anyway. That's implied.
Yeah. He literally bought a house across the bay too low. Like, the green light could have not been there. And then afterward, when Nick, like, sees the green light, he's like, we shouldn't even pine. So the symbolism doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter because...
The shore could have been it.
I'm honestly sick of the green
Yeah, no,
light.
I just think the green light's a bit, like, it's in your face. Yeah.
Out of all the things that, like, we could have continued discussing in school, we're going to focus on this stupid green light.
It's really try hard. It's just a little extra.
Honestly. And we talked a lot about, like, the fan theory, like, the gay stuff, the possibility of Zelda writing it. Yeah, and then we just mentioned the one about Daisy possibly not being
There's
purebred
a lot
Nordic.
of weird mentions about race, like, going through and reading it this time.
There are a lot of weird, like, when they describe Mr. Wolfshine, let me find when they do that.
Oh, that's just, like, that's, the nose is every fifth word.
Literally. Where the hell is it?
Oh, also, so there is, like, we should have talked... I have two questions. Is there a piece of symbolism that you think maybe deserved more like, can you think of, like,
more
a
recognition?
different thing that they use as symbolism where you're like, I'm trying to think. I know I had one in mind.
And you forgot.
Oh, wait, here's one that's fun. So, like, one of, like, for me, like, when I think of, like, The Great Gatsby, one of the scenes that always comes to my head is the girls laying on the couch and, like, the wind is blowing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And they're, like, two young women buoyed up as though upon an anchored balloon. And every time it references that, as soon as Tom Buchanan comes in,
it's like,
they go back to the ground.
Yeah.
So it's, like, I kind of like how he's just a fucking anchor.
More, in school. Like, I have, every time they talk about Tom, when Tom says anything, it is like, Tom demanded, Tom snapped, Tom insisted. I would have loved to talk more about that in school. Like, why is Tom being described so aggressively?
Yeah.
Like, it's to the point where I'm like, whoever wrote Tom is able to recognize the difference in this toxic masculinity versus not. And I just don't think that's a very common thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't know.
Very strange. No, there's so many other things that are so strange.
I have this line too. So this is after they were talking about when they met Jordan, like, from her white girlhood. This is what Tom says after that. Did you give Nick a little heart-to-heart talk on the Verdun, whatever the hell? Demanded Tom suddenly. That's a normal sentence.
Yeah. You just said, like, a normal thing.
But then it kind of feels like, did you give Nick a little heart-to-heart? Like, that's how I feel it when
it's
I hear
it's
demanded.
So overly aggressive for just, like, what sound like regular.
And I was finding the thing about Mr. Wolfsheim, a small flat-nosed Jew.
Yeah, it just doesn't
I'm
sound
like, you can't
good.
say those things. And, yeah, just stuff like that. I think I would have preferred, like, if this was being read in college, we would focus more on, like...
The race things are really interesting.
Yeah. And, like, there's a lot of juxtaposition or, like, conflicting sentences that I thought were interesting when I remembered reading a while back.
From my perspective, it's, like, Nick definitely comes from, like, a more hyper-liberal family than of the time. It says something, like, about how his family immigrated to America and, like, really quickly on, like, it said something about his grandfather sending in a substitute for the Civil War.
Yeah.
So he, like, actively did not, which also, he could just be a lazy, like...
He could have been, like, Trump.
draft dodger.
Yeah.
But I thought it was, like, a weird, like, thing just to throw in to be like, hey, he didn't want to fight in the Civil War.
Yeah.
Which...
And then they also say that they are descended from the Dukes of Buccleuch. But they're like, that's not actually true.
Yeah.
So they're kind of trying to give themselves this upper hand, even though they don't really need it. I don't know. It's all weird.
Yeah, I could definitely see them being some sort of other, or enough to be in understanding with I totally ripped the first page of my book while we were doing
Oh no.
So annoying.
Okay, so theories, stupid green light. So you didn't read the ending. How do you feel about it?
So for me, the first part that we went over of this book is so magnificent and amazing to me. Like, just like comes to me perfect, vivid.
And I think it kind of has to do too with like Nick arriving in New York. It's magic.
Yes.
The city's beautiful.
For me, that's so much more interesting. And also, I think we've talked about this, where when a major point of conflict is a misunderstanding.
Oh my god, it's so annoying.
I want to die.
Literally.
He didn't hit her with the car. That wasn't his mistress.
No.
Nobody talks.
Not even Nick at that point, which, like, Nick, that's not honesty. You were literally being dishonest.
It makes me sick when that is, like, the problem.
Like, just talk.
When conflict could be so easily solved.
Mm-hmm.
And then, honestly, I'm also bad with the love triangle.
Yeah, I don't fucks with love triangles very much.
I think it's the only way this book could have ended was what happened.
Yes.
But I don't find it as necessary to read and as enjoyable.
I do think the end, like, I couldn't think of another way to end it.
Oh,
like,
it's perfect.
Like, what, Gatsby's gonna run off with Daisy, leaving their little kid and Tom behind? Like...
Everybody's happy. No.
Yeah, oh, everybody's happy.
Myrtle and Tom are together. Daisy and Gatsby are
Wilson's
together.
totally chill. He bought that car from Tom and was
Nick
vibing.
goes to dinner party like every other day. He goes
Nick
from
just
one to the other.
vibes. No, that couldn't have happened. It had to end this way. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I just get like, and the awkwardness in the like scene when they're at the hotel. That stresses me out. Like in the movie too.
Fun to read.
And the movie's like a quick movie. It's only like an hour 30, which is funny because we're about an hour 30 now.
Yeah,
with
true.
this
We have more to
podcast.
say than the movie did.
But one of my favorite things, like when they're at that spot, and this is completely random and not really what we were talking about, but like I love that like Tom's like, he's wearing a pink suit.
Like, are you not grossed out by that?
Are we all aware that he's wearing a pink suit?
It's like when Barack Obama wore the tan. Like
Everyone was
suit.
like,
It's like, why are we still listening to what he is saying? Are you guys not disturbed?
And I think it kind of sucks too that like right at the very end, Tom's like gets a redemption arc, air quotes, with Daisy, when it's like Daisy's an ass.
Daisy's a bitch.
She's literally a
Fuck
bitch.
her up. I'm so sorry.
And I think, in all honesty, what changed her mind fully, besides Gatsby's erratic behavior, is the fact that learning he was a bootlegger, and that the money could disappear at any point.
True. Yeah.
Like, Tom's got his money. She's got her money from family. And, like, that, like...
Yeah, like, I think she kind of just realized she was, like... Also, I don't think she's ever taken a strong stance in her life. I'm gonna venture to say. So when Gatsby's like, hey, you're gonna leave him and you're gonna be with me now, she's gonna be like, I'm gonna leave him and be with you now. And then Tom's like, no, you're gonna stay with me. She's like, okay.
And then Nick's like, it's my birthday. She's like, I don't care.
Yeah, so... Yeah, she's perfect, weak female character.
Literally.
Awesome.
And that's what I said I wrote, like, because I read this in sophomore year, I think, honors reading is when we read it. And then I reread it and wrote a paper about it in AP English about, like, how because this is one of the things in high school, too, that I thought would have been more recognizable symbolism to discuss. The fact that the three women, Myrtle, Jordan, and Daisy, represent three super different types of women.
True. It's kind of the only three types of women
that
at
were
the
allowed,
time.
Yeah, that were allowed at the time.
It's like if you have to be one.
And how, like, Jordan, the free range, like, does whatever she wants, is kind of, like, described as dishonest and a liar and honestly a little bit of a floozy from that perspective of those times. Whereas Daisy's the innocent, blah blah blah, and then Myrtle's like the wife, the bored housewife.
Yeah. Also the slut, the real slut.
Yeah, the real slut.
Yeah.
So it's like those types of symbolisms would have been nice to discuss.
Yeah.
And I think we all need to get on the Daisy hate train, like,
Yeah,
as a community.
She's so... Not only is she boring, but there's nothing to me that's more frustrating than somebody that will never... I would rather somebody have the wrong opinion every time than somebody have no opinion.
It's very Hamilton, Aaron Burr. Like, I don't have... And he's like, well, that's why you're not getting elected. And it's like, Daisy, that's why you don't have any friends.
Exactly. That's why
you keep killing people, Daisy.
That's why you're never going to be happy in your lives. Because you won't even try to take a stand on anything. And then there's, like, something in reference where Nick Carraway is like, he's finally free. Like, I forget what he says, where he's like, he's better off dead.
Yeah. Which he is. Like, Daisy was never going to call him.
No. And, I mean, you spend all of your life focused on one dream. Like, sorry. You're going to get...
You're going to get this... Like, he has hyped it up to so much.
He has nothing to live for.
Literally nothing outside of Daisy to live for, which is... It's honestly giving incel. Like, I know I said it earlier as a little bit of a joke, but, like, it is.
Really is.
Like, I feel like Tom and Gatsby, if we were to rewrite this in this day and age, would be two different sides of the incel platform.
Yeah.
It'd be neo-Nazi as Tom and nice guy as Gatsby.
Yeah. We call them supplicants.
Oh, is that the real word?
Oh, it's basically like a version of simp that's like more intense, like a bit more of a classical era supplicant.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I like that. So that would be Gatsby.
Yeah, classic supplicant behavior from him.
Yeah. And, like, to the point where he lived across from Daisy for what? Maybe a year? Never once even...
So embarrassing.
Like, speak your truth, dude. Write her a fucking letter.
Write her a letter, dude. Like,
start a letter correspondence. I bet if they had started a letter correspondence... Oh my god, it would have been so different at the end. She would have been like, yeah, I fucking hate Tom.
Exactly. Or, honestly, if you're just too scared to talk to her, even just seeing her, like, face to face, like,
yeah.
I'm sorry, not to encourage stalking behavior. Take a lap around her house a few times.
Literally. You got a boat over there.
Boat, like, so many things.
Don't stalk, but, like...
Go say you're new to the neighborhood and go introduce yourself to every neighborhood.
Oh my god, is that Daisy?
And then, yeah. There's so many possibilities.
Because he is doing stalking behavior. Yeah. Like, no matter what.
He's just bad at it.
He's so bad at it.
He just sucks at it.
Like, let me just stalk her from across the bay and not be able to look into her house and instead think this green light is her. Like, I'm sorry,
go to the other side of the bay.
Just
lazy
drive
ass.
Your stupid yellow car.
He's so annoying, honestly, too. And I think that's why I like the beginning of the book where it's just Nick Carraway talking.
Nick? I love Nick.
Love him.
So reasonable. I do think he should have gone to the police with his information at the very end of the book.
I mean, like, yeah.
I mean, usually, like, let's be honest, what are they gonna do? They're like, but this is what looks like it happened. There's blood on the floor, mop it up.
Mop that shit up.
Yeah, I think we can go into a little bit of what we think about each character, because we're already kind of doing that. We already discussed Gatsby and Daisy, like, Tom to boot. But, like, Nick, I honestly think Nick's a good narrator.
Yeah, he's one of the best narrators. And he's, I would venture to say, the most interesting person in the book.
I would, too.
Like, he's also just, like, I feel like he is one of the people that, like, gets validated from other people's impressions of it. Or maybe it's because he's so neutral. He says that at the beginning, where it's, like, people kind of latch onto him because he's so neutral. Yeah. They're like, oh, you neither hate me nor are you obsessed with me. I need to get you to do one or the other.
Yeah. Which, like, I feel like Gatsby was the only person that he was kind of instantly attached to without... Yeah. Like, Gatsby wasn't like, I want to be friends with you. He was like, I want to fuck your cousin.
Yeah.
And I need you to be, around.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, Nick was like, Gatsby rocks. Like, Gatsby doesn't want me to love him or expects this behavior from me. Like, he's just a dude obsessed with a woman, which, like... Mm-hmm. And even Nick tries to bring him down back to reality. He's like, no, up over here. Don't do that.
You don't even know her.
You know, it's been... I mean, like, he's like, you can't repeat the past. And Gatsby's like, yes, you literally can.
You literally can.
Which, I mean, the past does repeat itself, but not at those micro levels. Like,
yeah, not every detail of it. And it's never going to be the exact same. But yeah, Nick Carraway, he's awesome. He's the smartest person in the movie.
Thumbs down. Daisy,
Tom
thumbs down.
seems very obvious. Daisy's been more of a complicated thumbs down because she doesn't even feel like a real person to me.
She literally just feels like
I'm sorry.
air.
It's just like, yeah, she's...
Which is interesting because if this was written by Zelda, typically when people write, they put themselves in a character.
Yeah, but they could also just write how they're viewed.
Or she put herself in as Nick, the person who just observes.
True.
Because Nick doesn't feel very male or female at any point.
No, never. Nick could be like how she sees herself, and then Daisy could be how others see her.
Yeah, something like that.
That
because
could be interesting.
Because like really Nick doesn't like, I don't feel Nick is gendered besides like the name.
Yeah.
Outside of that.
And the general respect he gets
Yeah.
from the males around him.
And I mean, like,
That's
to the
a
point,
very masculine trait.
to the point where, like, you know, his birthday's forgotten about by him and others. Like, that's something that probably happened to a bunch of women back in the day.
True.
Like,
yeah, no, he's an enigma, and I love him. I love him so much.
Nick, thumbs up. Gatsby,
Jordan's cool too.
sideways.
Gatsby's sideways. Gatsby, it's like at least you care about something.
Jordan, I agree. I was gonna say thumbs up for Jordan.
Thumbs up for Jordan.
She's just a boss bit, like, girl boss.
She's fine.
Gaslight,
Compulsive
whatever it is.
liar.
She knows who she is. She knows what she's about. She does sports, even if it is golf, which I don't think is a sport.
Job. She
has a
and
full-ass
busy.
job.
Like,
Yeah. She lives with her aunt, her senile old aunt.
yeah, which shout out to her. No, I think she's actually a complex person.
Yeah. And I'm sure she's got some weird back history where, like, because she was always a little bit younger than all the other girls, so maybe she needed certain attentions on her, blah, blah, blah. But yeah.
Super interesting girl.
And I talked about a lot of my favorite lines. Do you have any favorite lines you want to mention before we are done?
Oh, we forgot about the whole, like, fucking... They foreshadow the car really hard. He tells Daisy she's a rotten driver, and he goes, well, other people are good drivers.
I think that's Jordan.
Oh, it is Jordan.
Because that's when he's, like, realizing she's a liar.
Yeah.
But still...
Yeah, still a bit.
Because she kind of insinuates at that point that two people have to be bad at driving in order to cause an accident. She's like, well, I'm just one.
Yeah, so...
I'm just one piece of the puzzle. What are you going to do about it? Here, I can read some of mine.
Yeah.
Because I put stars next to mine. I already read the one that I liked about the comparing Gatsby to the earthquake machine, which I think that one's brilliant. And then one of my others is when he first meets Jordan and what's-her-face? Daisy. And yeah, I was talking about Jordan. She was extended full length at the end of the divan, whatever that is, completely motionless, with her chin raised a little as if she were balancing something on it, which was quite likely to fall. And then later in the like chapter paragraphs, he's like, then she moved around like it did fall. I was like, okay.
That's awesome. I just found, okay, this isn't one of my favorite lines because it's deep, but I thought this was a massive burn by Nick Carraway. When I read this, I laugh so hard. This is during the one where Tom has just read his, like, Nazi book or something. Yeah. And then the phone call comes from the woman. And Nick says, this is so funny. He said, as for Tom, the fact that he had some woman in New York was really less surprising than that he had been depressed by a book. That is so crazy.
That's fucking, oh my lordy.
Isn't that so funny?
I love that. Oh, which is funny because that whole dinner, Daisy's like putting Tom down. Like, Tom likes to read awfully long words and awfully big books. One of my other favorite things, they're all at the beginning too, which is interesting, is when really Mr. McKee shows up at the house, he's got this little bit of shaving foam on his face.
Oh, yeah.
Because they had just, and then like Nick is fucking hyperfixated on it because
He's
Mr.
so
McKee falls
bothered.
asleep and he goes, taking out my handkerchief, I wiped from his cheek the remains of the spot of dried lather that had worried me all afternoon.
Literally. And actually, I thought there was a line in the book about this, but maybe it was something we talked about forever ago, where in my head he had said something about being like, his wife obviously doesn't care about him.
Yeah.
But it's never actually said.
I don't think it is, because like
but it's
his
kind
wife's
of just
like
implied, like, okay, if, like, it's like your wife should notice that and want to, like, get it off.
Yeah.
But.
Unless that's his bad side. He didn't want anyone seeing him from his bad side.
Yeah, he tries to keep it away.
But those are some of my favorite lines.
Yeah,
I love those lines.
There's so many. It's infinite. Go on Goodreads,
just
everybody.
read this book, guys. Like, it's so good.
Bring your highlighter.
It's on Libby, the library app, which Faith doesn't use because she is a paperback girly.
Paperback. Honestly, my favorite quote is the entire first page.
That is such. I mean, honestly, like, when I read this as a kid, I never like got, but now I'm an adult and I'm like, fucking sick way to live.
Yeah.
Way to go. Like,
amazing.
Okay, and so with that, we'll end it there. Follow us on TikTok, on YouTube.
Go stream
it. Give us a review. 5 stars on
Spotify reviews.
Apple, I guess, if you listen on Apple.
Yeah, or transfer over to Spotify.
Yeah, apparently Apple's like a big thing for like analytics, but I'm like, I literally don't know one single person who uses Apple Podcasts.
I really don't.
But if you're on Spotify, give us a review, 5 stars.
And if you're on Apple, don't feel bad.
Well, feel a little bad. Get on the Spotify.
You've probably faced enough shame in your life.
We'll give it to you, but you gotta give us a 5-star review or else. Yikes.
Make it worth it.
What else was I gonna say? The library, the Cincinnati library where we're at in Cincy. You can get your books online for free, so that's always good. Like, Gatsby's on there, except for at, like, the middle of the year when all the high schoolers are reading it. But besides that, my name's Blue, and I love to read.
My name's Faith. Thank you for having me. I like to read sometimes.
Sometimes, here and there.